What's up, YouTube? Ryan Panny here. Hope you guys are doing reasonably well. This is it. This is the video that I look forward to all year long. It's the video that, when you think about it, I spend by a fucking mile the most time and effort on. Just all those countless hours listening and re-listening to these albums. I know, really hard work. 2020 has been interesting for metal because I don't ever remember it being this lopsided in terms of the two halves of the year. Like when I did my mid-year metal list back in, I think, late June, early July, whatever it was, I legitimately struggled to get to like the 20 albums or so that I was going to consider. Those early months of 2020 were just uncharacteristically, unusually slow for metal. But then here we are at the year's end, and fucking narrowing it down was impossible because so many great records came out since July. But either way, whatever the distribution is between the parts of the year, I'm really psyched about these 10 that I chose. Number 10 could have gone to several records, so that's going to be kind of a toss-up when I look back on this. And obviously ordering them is always impossible, but just knowing that all these records are going to be represented on this channel is really exciting to me. They're all records that I really think you should check out if you're at all into hard rock and metal. And I'm just going to get this out of the way right now so you don't have to go scrolling through the fucking video to look for it. That Spirit Adrift record that everyone's obsessed with, it's a little overrated. I enjoyed it a lot. It's got some great songs on it. I probably, if I had reviewed it on this channel, I probably would have given it like a lighter 7. But to me, it really is just a fairly typical throwback trad metal record. And that's a style of music that I've been listening to a lot for 10, 15 years of my life. I think sometimes that might just be a subgenre that metal fans don't necessarily explore much, so when they get a record that they like, it shoots up to the top of the list. But it's not that amazing, guys. Sorry. Anybody putting it in their top 5 or their top 10 is kind of overreacting. And for my honorable mentions, I'll do, I mean, that doesn't really count as an honorable mention. I'll just do like the next 10 that I probably would have included here. Yeah, I love the Venom Prison record, but that didn't really count because it was mostly re-recordings of old songs, but I listened to it a lot. Necrophobic put out a great record if you're into black and death metal. Fate's Warning really satisfied my classic metal craving in the latter half of the year. Some stellar songwriting on that one, my goodness. Let's see here. Eternal Champion, too. I really enjoyed that one. It was called Ravening Iron. Testament, I gotta give Testament some love, but that record, Titans of Creation, the way it incorporated just a little bit of extreme metal, really, if anything, I probably like it more than when I reviewed it. And then yeah, a bunch of records here that I talked about at mid-year that I still love. Like Rat's Death Monolith, for the 90s Floridian death metal fans watching. Protest the Hero, Pallbearer, Velortox Split, Paradise Lost Obsidian, gothic doom metal record, fucking awesome. That's right, I did like Solosa, Cycle of Suffering. I haven't really returned to it much, but I liked it a lot. Black Royal Fire Bride. That would be my pick for a more like trad metal sounding record that I really got into. That record has just a touch of the entombed extreme metal flavor to it, but it really is like not that far off from what Spirit Adrift are doing, just a little less lead guitar. But tons of albums to choose from. There's probably another 10 to 15 that I seriously consider for this list that I left off there, but we're not here to talk about the guys who almost made it. We're here to talk about the top 10 metal records of the year. Let's do it. Number 10, definitely my biggest surprise here, by a pretty wide margin. I'm giving it to DevilDriver, Dealing with Demons 1. This one is so strange because I have never loved a DevilDriver record, despite the fact that in 2009, fucking everything I listened to sounded like Pray for Villains. So looking back, it feels like I should have, but they never clicked with me. They were always an enjoyable, but never an exemplary new wave of American heavy metal band. Yet here we are, 20 years of them being a band now, and that is exactly how I would describe this record. It is just everything we love about the 21st century American metal movement done to a T. Little infusions of extreme metal here and there, the high octane double bass way the fuck up in the mix, the angry, in-your-face confrontational lyrics, which this album is very much a lyrical exorcism for vocalist Des Fafara. Groove metal, you have a little bit of thrash metal, just all the fucking ingredients are here in all their glory. And I'm perfectly willing to admit that it's likely because the band chose to break this record up into 2 parts that I dig it so much, because it's such a tight 10 tracks, and it's a sound that would probably get old beyond like 40 minutes or so, which is probably why there's no DevilDriver record that's ever jumped out at me. But this is just a really, really tight 10 tracks that leaves you wanting nothing more but pretty exhausted as a listener. It's not going to be for all my viewers, but if that movement is something that you're really into, the Lamb of Gods of the world, the Chimeras, the Shadows Falls, this is that done to a T, although like about 13 years after the peak commercially. Favorite tracks: Dealing with Demons, the title track, Wishing, and Keep Away From Me. Number 9 is Avatar's Huntergatherer. I absolutely love this band's eclectic sound, which in my opinion takes a lot of talent to pull off without completely losing your identity. Like, this is a record that sounds like so many things, but also sounds like Avatar. I mean, seriously, power metal, thrash metal, groove metal, metalcore, death metal, it's all somehow represented here, and it gives the album a delightfully chaotic flow to it. Just the fact that like a song like Wormhole and Secret Door and Child, they all coexist on the same relatively short album. That's just a lot of fun to me. I think a huge bulk of the credit for that has to go to the band's versatile frontman Johannes Eckerström, hope I said that right, who really feels like the glue holding these disparate elements together a lot of the time. Favorite tracks on here: Child, Secret Door, what else? Scream Until You Wake. I fucking loved the Napalm Death record. Throes of joy in the jaws of defeatism. That's a very fun one to say. Especially as a fan of Napalm Death who's more partial to that commercial 90s death metal era of the band, like the Fear, Emptiness, Despair period, than I am towards the more classic grindcore stuff. Like, this album to me just feels like a perfectly curated playlist of post-94 Napalm Death. It doesn't feel as much like an album as it does a playlist. It's so shuffle-friendly because every song has a pretty distinct feel to it. It has a different balance of extremity versus groove. And of course, the bonus is that you feel like you're getting many different sides of the band. If you need raw production, this album is not for you. It actually sounds pretty good. But if you're into, like I said, post-94 Napalm Death, this record fucking slams. Favorite songs? I mean, I love all of them. Amoral is really good. Zero Gravitas Chamber, and Acting in Gouged Faith. Code Orange is next with Underneath, which, let me tell you, I want to leave this record off this list so fucking badly. Because, and look, I've talked about this ad nauseum at this point, there is this incredibly frustrating metal tokenism on the part of the hipster music writer crowd, where they just pick like one album a year or one band a year to prop up, to show everybody that they, sure enough, they follow and care about and understand our music, when in fact a lot of times they don't. And that band this year was Code Orange. But that's not their fault. I mean, what this record is an incredibly fresh sounding approach to what is ostensibly metalcore, but there's so much nu metal and industrial metal and alt metal influences wrapped in there. So as much as I wanted to hate on this record and push back against kind of a music writer establishment, it's awesome. I love it so much. This band just has set fire to that aforementioned new wave of American heavy metal formula that I talked about. Like everything that DevilDriver did well on their record sounds absolutely ancient when you listen to Code Orange. They've just totally thrown that formula out the window. They really are pushing the genre forward, and we're all better off for it. And I like how a lot of their lyrics address the struggles of now, particularly the unprecedented social environment that we're living in, and all those industrial flourishes really do give it an appropriately dystopian atmosphere. And then when there isn't any atmosphere, there are some brutal riffs that are like some of the heaviest I've ever heard that could still be classifiably nu metal or metalcore. This is an album that knocks you off your feet with its jarring uniqueness pretty much right out the gate with the opening track, Swallowing the Rabbit Hole, and you never quite gain your footing. Favorite songs on here: Swallowing the Rabbit Hole, Back Inside the Glass, and Easy Way. Deftones at Numero 6, their 9th record, Ohms. I love how polarizing this band is. That is really, if not a sign of good art, at least it's a sign of compelling art. Because you look out there, you have tons of negative reviews, really negative reviews about this record. And then you have, I think it was Revolver and Metal Hammer both gave it Album of the Year. So just go ahead and think what you want about this record, because every opinion exists. I feel like I do this every time Deftones release a record, at least for the last decade. But this might be like their best album. It's so different for me because I do not have any attachment to White Pony or Around the Fur. They're good records, but they're not special to me. They're definitely definitive for the movement and the time period they were a part of. But to me, Deftones keep getting better and better and better. I think we can all agree, at the very least, that this is a notable step up from Gore. And the MVP here, I think, would be the legendary producer Terry Date, who the band haven't worked with in 17 years. He really polishes their sound and just gives all the band's subtleties their proper due. I know it sounds like an oxymoron, a record that's both polished and nuance, but that's exactly what it is. You listen to a song like Radiant City on here, and it's just a wonderful example of how the band can have so much ambiance and atmosphere and yet still be heavy and groovy. The whole band shines bright on this record, but for me, the key to it all is the band's one-of-a-kind frontman, Chino Moreno, who he floats in and out of your consciousness with the different styles of vocals he does. Like sometimes he can be so light and delicate as to just be like a background instrument, just kind of absorbed into the song. And then he can also get right in your fucking face. And a song like Urantia demonstrates that duality beautifully. I really think that he, more than anybody, is the key to Deftones sound being as dynamic as it is. Favorite songs on here: Link is Dead, Radiant City, and the title track, Ohms. Pallbearer is next with just one of the most ear candy doom metal records I think I've ever heard. Wow, this album, the way it pulls off being so gloomy but so freaking catchy at the same time, I think a lot of that is due to the band's more song-oriented approach to doom metal. Like with Quicksand of Existing or Rite of Passage, these are tight, snappy rock songs that just happen to occur within a larger doom metal framework. And it's that, but it's also the production. This album has a fucking sludgy and dirgy sound to it, but the mids cut through really clean. So you have these like strange bright moments that act as kind of a leavening agent. A song like Silver Wings is a good example of that. That song would be pretty morose without the mids cutting through like they do. Also the closer, Caledonia, is as swampy as it is genuinely melodic. So it's that rare ability to make an album that feels so uncompromisingly doomy and emotionally draining, but shimmers melodically in parts. That's what makes Pallbearer special. Favorite songs are Quicksand of Existing, Vengeance and Ruination, and Caledonia, the closer. Number 4 is a band that I got into on this record, which I fucking love when that happens, Black Crown Initiate with Violent Portraits of Doomed Escape. If you were super into that last Rivers of Nile record, you will very likely love this record. It's less experimental and a lot hookier, but it's got a lot of the same sonic trickery to it that make the band sound like this futuristic, overwhelming machine. It's got a wonderful progressive tinge to it. It's like Periphery plus Rivers of Nile plus Dream Theater. That's 3 amazing bands that come to mind when I listen to it. You'll be as impressed with the soaring, dramatic, clean vocal hooks on songs like Years in Frigid Light and Trauma Bonds as you are with the crushing and complex musicianship on the same songs. That combo is so fucking rare to find. I feel like in the post-planetary duality death metal landscape, all these newly fucking bands cannot write a song to save their lives, and yet on this record, which is a complex record, it's the songwriting that is the best part of the experience. The song Holy Silence in particular is just one of the best metal songs of 2020. It gets sent off with this first there's this Opethy acoustic passage that then just blossoms into this fucking epic harmonized solo. You will be blown away by it. Amazing record by a band that I'm new to, and I can't wait to catch up on their other 3 releases. Favorite tracks on here are Holy Silence, Years in Frigid Light, Invitation. Number 3 is Purely Selfish, although a lot of you guys probably love this record too, Anaal Nathrakh with Endarkment. The reason I say it's a selfish pick is just because it's a relatively formulaic version of just one of my favorite extreme metal bands of all time. Like, it's somewhere, the songs are awesome, and it is definitely a huge improvement over 2018's kind of disappointing new kind of horror, but it's somewhere in the middle of their catalog. It's not nearly as groundbreaking as a Codex Necro or a Constellations. I just continue to absolutely adore this band's completely outrageous blending of this way over-the-top manic aggression and sound mixing with these super sugary, almost like operatic choruses. It's like they don't see the irony at all when they write these songs. It's almost laughable. The title track on here, which opens the record, is perhaps the most pure illustration of that contrast, but so is Create Art, so is Libidinous, also Age of Starlight Ends, which is probably my favorite song on the record. And now Nathrakh, their approach to extreme metal is just everything we love about the genre. It's so fucking ridiculous and outrageous and has these completely cathartic blasts of insanity, but it's tempered with these really sincere and memorable melodic moments. And when you have those 2 elements, like what more do you want out of a metal record? Favorite songs: Age of Starlight Ends, title track, Libidinous, those 3. Now at number 2, we have only the second record to appear on this list from the first half of 2020, the unbelievable neo-thrash clinic Weapons of Tomorrow by Warbringer. Everything I said at the mid-year still applies. If anything, this record's stature has only grown for me since then. Just the way it effortlessly weaves in extreme metal to the thrash sound on cuts like Notre Dame and Heart of Darkness, that alone is remarkable. But then on the rest of the record, you just have these impeccable executions of the Exodus and Testament formula. Crushed Beneath the Track is one of them. Outer Reaches is another favorite. And the breakdown at the end of that song is maybe my favorite breakdown of 2020. And then they even pull off half a ballad with the song Defiance of Fate, which rounds out the record really nicely. So if thrash metal is stale and boring to you, trust me, this record will be worth your time. It's the only record from the genre that you have to listen to from this year. Favorite tracks: Heart of Darkness, Outer Reaches, Notre Dame. And my number one has also stayed the same from mid-year. The amazing, amazing Cosmic World Mother by And Oceans, one of my favorite black metal records of the past decade. Like, it just sounds like it was made specifically for my tastes. It has this awesomely cold and dark production to it, but it also has this commendable combination of atmosphere and aggression, sometimes occurring simultaneously, like on the title track, and other times occurring sort of in separate passages, like on the closing pair of songs here. Personally, I think the label symphonic is very lazy for this band, but there is definitely a layer of keys and strings that sort of coats these songs and adds a nice understated element of theatricality to them, but does not take an inch away from the brutality of the music. And that's a mistake that Demon Will Gear have made a lot. And that to me is just always a huge achievement in black metal, when you can pull that off without stepping on any toes. And you know what? You do get some genuine symphonic passages, like on the song Helm and Thyasis, and then the title track towards the end of it takes almost an industrial black metal turn. So there is enough variety here to sort of round out the songs and make them stand significantly apart from each other. And the thing about this record is, unlike basically all the other albums on this list, I can't imagine any metal fan listening to it and not liking it, whatever your subgenre preference is. Favorite tracks, I love all of them. I guess I'll single out After Before, the title track, and maybe Vigilance and Atrophy. Bam! There it is. This is an amazing 10 metal records that I really hope, if you guys are unfamiliar, you give a chance. If either A, you missed them entirely, or B, maybe you just gave one of these records 1 or 2 listens and didn't really give enough of a chance. I hope my recommendations are worthwhile for you. And then on top of just being 10 amazing records, it's also a really cool time capsule for me, just to look back and, you know, years later from now, I might be like, you know, what were the good metal records that year we had that pandemic? And these are the answers right here. And of course, equally importantly, you gotta let me know in the comment section what your answers to that question are. I'm assuming one of them is probably that Spirit Adrift record. It's okay, we can still be friends. And yeah, I feel very good about where we ended up this year with metal releases. Metal is alive and well, guys. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and are not yet subscribed to my channel, please consider doing so by clicking right over here, as well as checking out any of the other rock or metal related content that I publish here on a weekly basis. I really appreciate you guys watching, liking, disliking, just engaging in any fashion. Twitter, Instagram handle @RyanPannyMusic. Again, thank you so much for watching, guys, and I will see you soon.